Good afternoon. Welcome to today's edition of the Coal Scene. I'm Chris Hamilton with the West Virginia Coal Association, and just want to thank you so much for tuning us in here today. We are actually broadcasting from the Charleston Civic Center, where the Coal Mining Symposium is hosting its 42nd annual meeting, and that's sponsored by the West Virginia Coal Association. And it's designed to bring together those in charge of administering various programs dealing with mine health and safety issues, environmental quality, the whole permitting process. It's also designed to bring those individuals charged with administering those important programs with those within the industry charged with the responsibility of complying and actually implementing the various aspects of our mining programs. We have here on the program this morning Governor Earl Ray Tomblin, who typically gives a keynote address at this event. We have Mr. Joe Main, who is the Assistant Secretary for Coal Mine Health and Safety with nationwide responsibility. We have a climatologist who will be talking about global climate change and the effect that humans and coal-fired utilities are having on that phenomenon, and a number of other individuals that are in charge in one way or another with the developing of policy issues that impact the various aspects of coal mining. So here we are at the Charleston Civic Center. We're about to commence with the 42nd annual West Virginia Coal Mine Symposium. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk to some of the speakers, some of the guests, some of the officials about their participation in this year's program.
With being a newcomer in the nation's capital, how can you start making some inroads as it pertains to helping the coal industry in West Virginia in your new position?
You know, throughout the campaign, coal was the #1 issue. West Virginia, in particular southern West Virginia, has been devastated by the war on coal. And the war on coal is real. The policies out of Washington have been devastating to our coal families, our coal miners, our coal communities, and our state in so many ways. So this was a central theme of the campaign. And from day one after the election, and when we were sworn in early January, we have been trying to fight the Obama administration. How are we doing this? One, it's about the committees that you serve on. I have been so fortunate to be selected to serve on the Appropriations Committee. Now, a lot of people think that appropriations is just about allocating the tax dollars and being a good steward of our money in Washington, how it's spent. But there's also a side of an appropriator on that committee where you have an opportunity to actually grill and interview and question the heads of all the federal agencies. I can't wait till we have the head of the EPA and we bring the war to coal to that committee hearing, and we talk to her and we prod her and we push her to get off the backs of our hardworking coal miners and our coal industry. The other thing we can do as an appropriator is go in and look at that budget. And you can be assured that I'm going to look at the EPA budget and I'm going to do my best to put riders and other limitations to say we don't want the federal tax dollars going into the EPA to be used to wage its war on our coal miners and our coal industry and our way of life, candidly, in West Virginia. So we also are being proactive. Legislation like the RAINS Act, that reins in the EPA for these over-regulations that they are sending through the administration without the oversight of Congress. That's wrong, and we need to limit that, and we can do that with legislation that I'm an original co-sponsor on. So we're going to be proactive. We're going to use the power of the purse. We're going to use the bully pulpit as an appropriator. We're going to go after the EPA because we want to help get our coal industry back on its feet in West Virginia.
Congressman, the war on coal didn't start yesterday. You've been battling it from your seat as a state senator and now as congressman. My question is, the rhetoric that goes on between both sides of the aisle with the administration in Washington, D.C., what's it going to take? You mentioned the Appropriations Committee. They listen to dollars and cents, obviously, but what's it going to take to finally cut through the rhetoric and make some headway?
We're going to make some headway. We've got to fight the good fight, and we are fighting that. Elections matter, and unfortunately, I don't think this president heard the message from the voters of America, and certainly not of Southern West Virginia. I sat just a week ago and heard the State of the Union address in person, looking straight at this president, and he talked about this energy boom in America, and he never mentioned coal. He has thrown coal and Southern West Virginia under the bus, candidly. There's no role in his agenda for coal, but we can have an impact. Elections do matter. It may take the fact that we've just got 2 more years of this administration, and he'll be gone, obviously. So that's going to be, from my perspective, and I think for West Virginians, a day that hopefully we will see new leadership come. The voters in 2014 made a clear statement. We're ready for a change of direction, not just a change of pace, not only here in West Virginia, but for this country. I don't think the president heard it, but we're going to do everything we can every step of the way this next 2 years to fight this anti-coal agenda.
Final question. In 2007, 33 million tons of coal was being produced out of Boone County. 11 million tons now. In Marshall County, in the northern sector of the state, in the Panhandle there, is now the leading producer per county with 19 million tons a year. What are you working with fellow Congressman McKinley to get everybody on the same page?
Well, we are on the same page. And as a matter of fact, the legislation like the RAINS Act, we're all working together on. Let me throw out another statistic, the fact that we've lost 43% of our coal jobs. The tonnage is critically important, but I also understand those jobs. I've looked at those coal miners and those families in the eye over the last 18 months on the campaign trail. I've seen what the war on coal has meant to them, their families, and their communities. Congressman McKinley, Shelley Moore Capito, our new United States Senator, Alex Mooney, myself, we're all pulling in the same direction. We're all standing up to this administration. We're going to get those jobs, everything we can possible to get those jobs back.
What's your main message right now for an industry that just seems to get knocked down and get back up every other day?
Well, yeah, I think it's very important, that we as a government, we've depended on the coal industry for so long, for our tax base, it's a huge part of our tax base, for good employment, good jobs in West Virginia. And like you say, it seems like every day somebody else is smacking them around, whether here or abroad, with the world economy or, whether it's the federal regulations here. And I think it's important to know that there are people who still support the coal industry. I think it's a very important industry, not only for West Virginia, but around this country. We're still producing at least 40% of our electricity from coal. And I think it's important to know that, we're here to support the industry. We're here to, have those conversations with our federal officials. For example, Administrator McCarthy, and that I've had the opportunity to meet with several times, and really tried to explain the plight of what those regulations are doing, not only to our coal miners and their families and their communities, but the state of West Virginia. And I've explained to her that we all want a clean environment. That I remember as a kid growing up in the southern coal fields when the river ran black, and we decided we was going to clean it up. It wasn't done overnight, but it takes time to do it. And that's what I'm trying to explain to her. And some of the regulations they're putting down today, we simply cannot beat these deadlines, the way that they're doing it. And we need to consider other things along with the environment. We all want a clean environment, but the effect it has and how do you get from where we are today to where we want to be, it's going to take some time to do that. We're willing to work with them, but it's impossible to meet those demands in the time frame they've set forward from the EPA.
What's it going to take to finally have them say, you're right, or here's a compromise?
Right. I think that Congress is just going to really, have to come down on the EPA. They created the EPA, and it's not like what we do in West Virginia. My state agencies almost all have the ability to write rules and regulations to interpret the laws. But before they can go into effect or be carried out, the legislature has to review and approve them. At the federal level, it doesn't work that way. When an agency starts out like EPA, they don't have to have Congress's approval. And I think that's just an act that Congress needs to pass to say, sure, you can write rules and regs, but they're going to come back before us before they go into effect.
Final question, Governor. I was looking at some statistics. In 2007, Boone County was the largest coal-producing county in West Virginia, producing over 33 million tons a year.
Right.
Now, Boone County is producing 11 million tons. Marshall County in the northern panhandle is the leading county at about 17 to 19 million tons.
Right.
Do you ever see the day returning that way where southern West Virginia, your thoughts on that?
Well, there's two different kinds of coal we produce. We produce steam coal, we produce metallurgical coal. Obviously, steam coal is to use in the power plants to make electricity. Metallurgical coal is used to make coke and steel, and it's shipped all around the world. Because of the EPA regulations and the emissions standards, they're switching more in the electric generation over to natural gas and other cleaner sources right now, even though we've spent billions of dollars in West Virginia on scrubbers, taking out sulfur dioxide and so forth. On the other hand, the metallurgical coal, it's the world's basically recession has lessened the demand for that. And I think for sure that in time, and we'd hope to have return sooner, that we'll be using more metallurgical coal, which will put a lot of miners back to work in southern West Virginia. So anyhow, it's kind of a double whammy that it's been hit by both the steam coal as well as the metallurgical coal has been impacted at the same time.
It seems like you get knocked down and you have to get up every day with what Washington, D.C. is providing you on how you need to do your business. If you had a chance to say and sit down with them in D.C. and say, guys, this is what I need from you, what would it be?
I think consistent regulation would be the biggest. Every time we have a change in administration, we have a completely different regulatory program to adjust to, and I would say that's got to be the most difficult.
When you speak to your employees, probably guys that have worked with you for years, what's the message you give them when you're getting this message, that type of message back from the nation's capital and from our lawmakers?
Well, I think that the message that I have to give them is no matter what, we have to comply first. It's whether we agree, whether we think it makes miners safer or the environment cleaner, doesn't matter. We have to comply, and compliance comes first, and then we can work on doing things better secondly, and which has led to a lot of increased cost.
How difficult is it right now to run a coal company?
Well, I was laughing just earlier with someone, and we were talking about the market, and it's now $45 a ton for Central App coal, and I said, well, we're going to have to figure out how to produce $30 coal again, and they said, when did you ever do that? And I said, well, 12 years ago. The first train we sold when I started that business was $29.85. This was only 12 years ago. Today, we can't sell a half a ton for that, truly. And so, there's adjustments that have to be made. I mean, all of our supplies have increased by double. All our labor expenses increased by double. There are more taxes. There are more. It goes on and on and on. And so, there has to be a reset button pushed, I think, for the industry in Central Appalachia in order to adjust.
Final question.
Okay.
Look in your crystal ball right now. 5 years, 10 years. What's the picture of the coal industry in that period?
In West Virginia, I think the northern mines nearly unchanged. I think consistent with what we see today. I think in the southern part of the state, you'll see much fewer large companies, probably fewer multi-disciplined operations. You won't see deep mines and new preparation plants and that sort of thing. I think you might see smaller, lower capital expenditure type operations, maybe more surface mining, smaller operators, and lower tons.
The message that you gave to the 42nd Annual West Virginia Coal Conference was one of positive as it pertains to safety. Where does the industry stand right now as it pertains to moving forward with the safety issues?
I think the simple message is that we've made progress in a number of areas in reducing deaths, in preventing the black lung disease amongst our nation's miners, looking at using technology to prevent crushing injuries with a new rule that we just published on proximity detection, making progress in a number of areas, and it's being reflected in the data, showing us the lowest respirable dust levels in underground coal mines ever in history. This past year we had the lowest number of mining deaths in the coal industry ever. And we saw with some of our special enforcement programs, such as the impact inspection program and the pattern violations program that we reformed back in 2010, that we've seen a major reduction of number of mines we're identifying as chronic violator mines in the country. And it looks like these programs are having a more broad effect of really lowering the serious violations we're citing across the upper tier of the mining industry. So, those are things that show that we are making progress, that there's some meaningful results. The question is, will we sustain those? Can we sustain those going forward, and will we continue to make progress? Looking back to just a couple decades ago in the 1990s compared to today, we've had half the number of fatals this first part of this decade compared to the 1990s. Cut them in half from about 96 to 45. The number of coal deaths have dropped on average per year by about 40% during that same period. So we know that we were moving. If you just look at a longer measuring period, moving things in the right direction. If you look at some of the more recent years, following a lot of the 2010 reforms, we're seeing even greater progress with the thing that we measure most, and that is a reduced number of mining deaths. It has dropped down to an average of about 19 a year. That's too many, and we should have and should continue to work toward industry that is free of mining deaths, and I think we can get there one of these days.
What's it going to take to get there?
A continuation of what we're doing, for sure, and continue to look at what are those things that we can make a difference in. One of them is proximity detection, which just was implemented this month on a national level, that should protect miners from being crushed by continuous mining machines. As I announced today, we had our first fatal of the year up in Pennsylvania, coal mine fatal, unfortunately, and it was appears to be a miner crushed by a continuous mining machine. The rule that we announced will hopefully in the future protect miners from that and prevent those. We've had about 35 deaths from these machines since 1983. We're getting ready to move on to a new rule making on proximity detection for sectional equipment like scoops and coal hauling machines. Those have claimed over 40 miners' lives since 1983. And it will, going forward, getting this rulemaking completed, will add additional layers of protections. Things like that. What is it that is taking miners' lives? On black lung, or new black lung rule that we implemented, we believe going forward is going to have a major impact on the efforts to eradicate this unnecessary disease that's claimed tens of thousands of miners' lives. So, getting these more effectively in place with the support of the mining industry, with the support of miners, and with strategic steps like that, we can continue down that path to zero.
Doctor, your message to the coal industry in West Virginia, exactly explain it for me, and why people might not consider weather part of the industry when they should.
I think the first thing I have told the association is that the science does not support the kind of emission standards that are being promoted by the current administration. That the model results on which these policies are based simply fail, and we can falsify that scientifically. So that's wrong. Economically, it's what makes a country go. This is a modern economy. It requires electricity and transportation and industry. Without the energy that supports all of that, we will see the economic gains and really the gains in life anticipation and so on begin to fail. And then in terms of morality, having lived in Africa, I know that without energy, life is brutal and short. And any type of policy that makes it more difficult to get energy, makes coal more expensive, for example, is a type of policy that hurts people. And so in terms of the morality of it, it is anti-human to think of ways in which energy might be more expensive because you have a particular type of energy you want to sell and you want to market. And as I said in the first part of my talk, that the science of it does not support the idea of making energy more expensive by going to alternatives.
You deal with the science of weather every day, being state climatologist in Alabama. Why are the folks under the dome in the nation's capital not listening to the people that feel, taste, touch weather every day?
You know, as a state climatologist, I'm also one of those, I'm a working stiff climatologist. I actually build the data sets that tell us what the global temperature is and so on. I have found that in the current administration that there is a deafness to actual information, actual data that comes to us from our satellites, from our balloons, from our surface stations, and rather a real sense of wanting to have an agenda to adhere to. And so the agenda of saying humans are doing bad things to the planet in every way you can imagine is one that leads them to think of energy as something that's bad, when in fact energy is that which creates life for us. You can go back just 100 years ago and the life expectancy was 30 years less than what it is now. That's what modern energy has done for us. That is life. And then you get back to the moral question. Are you in favor of human life? And if you are, then you want energy access to just grow.
Do you think they'll ever listen? Final question. Or what's it going to take for them to listen, them being the federal administrators?
I can say that the democratically accountable part of this of the Congress listens. The majority is certainly aware of what I have to say and votes that way. But it's the administration that has a very particular agenda It's driven by some very focused environmental groups that has carried the day so far in the courts and bypassed the democratically accountable part of our system. And I hope somehow that is turned around by the people as they continue to understand what energy means for their lives.
Jimmy, the state of the industry right now here in West Virginia, good, bad, indifferent, in flux, what do you think?
Well, I think the state of the industry in West Virginia is bad. It's also bad globally, but we're still remaining to fight. I mean, if you look at, we have a lot of other alternative fuels now that are cheap. We have low natural gas prices. We have lower demand for our coal than we've had, and we have low prices. And you combine all those things together, it makes it very tough for an operator to go in and provide those good jobs or to produce a product that he can have a margin on that he can survive by. It's a vital part of our energy mix. I think there's things that West Virginians do, as we've heard from some of the presentations, that they wake up every day, want to go to work, want to do what they can to survive for themselves and their families, and we need to provide them that opportunity.
Jimmy, is your position not only with Consol Energy, but with as being chairman of the West Virginia Coal Association, what is your message to your fellow members, your fellow operators?
I think the most important message that I can give and we can put out there is when we have an opportunity to operate, we must do it safely and compliantly. The most important thing we can do is make sure that every miner that comes to work for us goes home in the same manner in which he comes. So we have to keep the work environment safe. Number two, once the regulations are put in place, we have no choice other than to comply with those. So once we've done those things, then the other message is keep fighting. You know, it's a vital part of the energy mix. As I said before, we can produce it. West Virginia has the best coal miners in the world. We can do it safely, we can do it compliantly, but we have to keep fighting till we get an opportunity so some of the regulations are maybe overturned or lessened some, that we can go out and produce and be competitive in a marketplace that's very difficult.
Final question, Jimmy. There's a new climate in the nation's capital right now with the Republican, the GOP having the majority. Is that going to be beneficial, or is the EPA going to be able to listen to the majority now? Your thoughts on that?
Well, we certainly hope it's going to be beneficial. I mean, we spent a lot of time with these candidates before, and now that they're elected, we'll have an opportunity to work with them. All we really want is both sides to work together and create an environment where we have opportunity, we have job growth, it's better for the state, it creates revenue for the state, it provides income for the families. It's a winner for all of us. We just have to work together as a bipartisan party. What's really good for the West Virginia people, the people of West Virginia, and what's good for the state, how can we generate, and not only the state of West Virginia, but for our nation as a whole. Well, that all but wraps up our program for today. Again, we've been